My father gave my younger brother everything and left me with nothing, but 20 years later, one phone call changed everything. Growing up, everyone knew who my father's favorite child was. It wasn't me, it was my younger brother Ryan. Ryan could do no wrong. If he got a B, Dad celebrated. If I got an A, Dad asked why it wasn't an A+. When Ryan forgot chores, Dad laughed. When I forgot chores, Dad called me irresponsible. At first I thought I was imagining it. Then I got older, and I realized everyone else saw it too. My mother saw it, our relatives saw it, even Ryan knew it, but nobody ever talked about it. When I turned 18, I got accepted into my dream university. I was excited, until my father sat me down. "We can't afford to send both of you to college." I stared at him. Ryan hadn't even applied yet. Then Dad continued, "We're going to help your brother first." I couldn't believe it. I had better grades, I had worked for years, but none of it mattered. Ryan was his favorite, so I took loans, worked nights, skipped meals, and somehow earned my degree on my own. Meanwhile, Ryan's entire education was paid for. A few years later, my mother got sick, very sick. The medical bills started piling up. I sent money every month, whatever I could spare. Ryan promised he would help too, but he never did. He always had excuses: new car, new apartment, vacation plans. Yet somehow there was never money for Mom. One night my mother called me crying. She didn't want treatment because she didn't want to be a burden. That broke me. I emptied my savings account the next morning. 2 years later, my mother passed away. The funeral was packed, people cried, shared memories, talked about how kind she was. Then I overheard something that made my blood boil. My father was telling people that Ryan had been taking care of everything. The hospital bills, the support, the sacrifices, all lies. I had done it, not Ryan, me. But Dad still couldn't give me credit, even then, especially then. That day I made a decision. I stopped calling, stopped visiting, stopped trying. For the first time in my life, I accepted something painful. Some parents don't love all their children equally, and no amount of effort can change that. Years passed, I got married, had a daughter, built a good life, without my father, without Ryan, without the constant disappointment. Then one evening, 20 years later, my phone rang. Ryan. I almost ignored it, almost, but something told me to answer. His voice sounded different, older, broken. He said, "Dad is dying." Silence. Then he added, "And he wants to see you." I laughed, not because it was funny, because it felt unbelievable. For decades he barely cared I existed. Now suddenly he wanted me. Ryan started crying. "Dad has something he needs to tell you." The hospital room smelled like medicine and regret. My father looked smaller than I remembered, weaker, human. For several minutes neither of us spoke. Then he said, "I'm sorry." 3 words. Words I'd waited my entire life to hear. But they felt strangely empty. Then he told me something I never expected. Years before I was born, he had lost a son, a little boy, an accident. The boy had been around Ryan's age. After Ryan was born, Dad became obsessed with protecting him, spoiling him, favoring him. Because he was terrified of losing another child, it didn't excuse anything. But suddenly I understood. His favoritism wasn't love, it was fear. Fear that had poisoned our entire family. Before I left, Dad handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter, and something else. The deed to a small piece of land my grandfather had owned. Land my father had kept for decades, for me. The letter said, "I spent my life trying not to lose one son and ended up losing another." My father died 3 weeks later. And honestly, I still don't know if I fully forgave him. Maybe forgiveness isn't a moment, maybe it's a process. What I do know is this: the anger I carried for decades finally became lighter, not because the past changed, but because I finally understood it. And sometimes understanding is the closest thing to peace we'll ever get. Subscribe for more emotional family dramas, Reddit-style stories, and life-changing confessions.